Hey folks, Alan and Magellan here, coming up really quick before the episode starts with a big announcement about the next season of Chats of Television podcast. Hi Magellan, first of all, hello.
Hey. So we're shifting to books on tape.
Yeah, it's a strict audiobook podcast going forward. Just kidding. No, so this is a book club podcast, TV book club format show where we watch TV 2 episodes a week generally. With the listeners, and we talk about them, and we have a great and funny time, I think. And we've had some comments recently about like the choices of shows that we've done, especially with 13 Under 13. Like, oh, we found shows that we do or don't like for a large swath of them, and we want to kind of bring the choice of what to watch next to the listener, who has always been an important component of Chats, a television podcast. So with that, we're announcing that season 16 of Chats is going to be based on and primarily comprised of discussions of episodes that you pick from a ranking system. So that being said, Magellan, do you want to explain to the folks how we're doing this whole ranking and tournament bracket format?
Yeah, so it's season 16 coming up, which means we thought it'd be fun to have a sweet 16 of shows in a tournament that we have been interested in covering, that we've heard from you that you're interested in us talking about. And you are involved in the entire show selection process. And then the winner of what will be a tournament bracket will end up getting watched for the remainder of its run for the rest of season 16. So the way that it'll work is, if you see in the show notes for this episode, there's a link to a Google form that has 32 TV shows in it. And you're going to vote on each one on a scale from 1 to 3. A 1 is like, do not watch this show.
You're voting against the show, basically. Yeah.
A 2 is I'm neutral here, or I want to see what other people think. A 3 is please watch this show. And then we'll take the top 16 shows from those 32. We'll use that to seed a bracket. And then what you'll hear during season 16 is every week we will do a matchup where we'll watch one episode of each of the shows that are currently up against each other in that round, and we'll decide which show continues, which show is going to go to the next episode in the next round, and which show do we leave behind as one of the losers of season 16. So the hope being that by the end of the season, we've picked a show that everybody's really jazzed about, that has bested some of the other programs that we were considering, and we end up watching something that we all really like, because we don't want to watch another show that we don't like next. So
sorry to Powerless.
Yeah. Anyway, so that form is in the description. In terms of how much time you have to put your votes in, we will be recording the first episode where we have to watch stuff in about 2 weeks from now, from when you're first listening to this. So you have until, that would give you basically until like June 17th, 18th to finalize votes. Mm-hmm. And then you'll hear the first episode of that season on the 25th of June.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And worth noting, if a show doesn't make it into the top 16, that doesn't mean that we're never going to watch it. That just means we're probably not going to watch it anytime soon. And y'all are voting on where we seed the bracket, and ultimately we have final say on what shows. That's going to be what the episodes are about, is watching 2 pilots, putting them head to head and saying, hey, which one of these do we want to go forward with? Of course, that also means that as the episodes release and you guys can give us feedback and say, hey, I really want to nudge you guys towards this one or the other one. If you have valid, good reasons for like, hey, the pilot's not so good, but you seem to have okay thoughts about it, we'll take those into account as we continue to move through the games. So
yeah, definitely.
It'll be really fun, I think. We have a lot of awesome shows. I think every single show in that bracket is at least a little interesting and has either come up in like Chat's community discussions or in just like Magellan and I's shows that we want to cover someday. So yeah, I think no matter what we end up sticking with, you're going to have something fun for next season.
Yeah.
That being said, get to that Google form, vote as soon as you can, talk to each other, commune, make the magic happen. And that's all we got. We'll cut back to the music now and talk about Powerless. Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, season 13, part 6, Chatzerless. This is the 6th series in our season on shows misfortunate enough to be canceled before airing their 13th episode, which we have dubbed 13 under 13. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by the last remaining conscious Macklemore fan in the year of our Lord 2017. It's Magellan.
Hey, you can't hold me because
On the ceiling?
Because
the ceiling can't hold us? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing. And then I was going to talk about how when I was a kid, I wanted to make sure my room was clean.
And I was in the 3rd grade, thought that I was gay. That song makes the soul fly out of my body.
I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend like I'm better than my 2017 self who unironically enjoyed the heist or parts of it.
Yeah, but, same. No, not 2017.
That's when you're saying I was late to it, or what are you saying?
No. The joke is that in Powerless they referenced it in 2017, which is when the show came out. Even though the heist came out in
2015. Oh, okay.
2012, buddy.
Well, I definitely had myself convinced for several minutes there that we graduated college, or that we entered college in 2016 instead of graduating in 2016. So you just took about 5 years off my life by bringing it back to reality. Yeah. Anyway, I also, I think, I was listening to Pod Save America in 2017, so I don't know how far out of the Macklemore sphere I really was, to be real.
We were just talking about the Slate Political Gab Fest in the Discord recently, and I was we had an era. Yeah. I had a political era there for a moment.
Yeah.
Anyways, hi, welcome to the Chats.
Now I'm woke and I support Know Your Enemy, but don't listen to it all the time.
I've been listening to a podcast actually recently. Maybe I'll chat some. Maybe it'll come up organically. It's one I've chat summed before.
What is it?
Gender Reveals Patreon podcast. Gender Conceal. It's quite good.
Oh, interesting.
Now I can't chat some it because you took it. You swine.
You could chat some it.
You're like,
I can tell you my chat some right now.
No. We haven't. No. Let's let him cook. Let him cook. I want you to keep your chat some. I want to also talk about Powerless with you.
Let's do it.
Excellent. This week we're discussing. Wow, that's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, we got a few.
We're discussing 4 episodes of Powerless. We're going to briefly talk about the Powerless Unaired pilot, which was sent to us. We found out it's on YouTube via a friend of the pod. So we're talking about the Unaired pilot. We're talking episode 4, Emily Dates a Henchman. And after the break, we'll talk about episode 5, Cold Season, and episode 6, I'm a Friend You. So let's get into it. Yeah, this Unaired pilot is just on YouTube because rights, I guess. They didn't have to worry about putting Unaired pilot. I love when I find Unaired pilots on YouTube. It's so fun. Yeah, because we don't always get to see how a pitch becomes a TV show, and Unaired pilots, even more than a regular pilot, are like a pitch for a pitch, basically. Here's our cast, here's the look of our show, here's the pacing, buy this and let us make it.
Yeah, I found it on a Vanessa Hudgens, the channel is called Vanessa Hudgens Brazil or something, and
nice.
For a second, I thought for some reason that it was the official verified Vanessa Hudgens channel, she went out of her way to post the Powerless Unaired pilot, and maybe she has some kind of beef with how they changed the show or something, but that does not exist. I was concocting some drama in my head. But
shout outs to Vanessa Hudgens Brazil, who have their own graphic, a unique graphic for their channel, by the way. That's great.
But yeah, we watched the Unaired pilot, which has some visual similarities to the show that we end up seeing, but by and large changes the premise. The characters are almost entirely different. What were some of the big differences that stuck out to you here?
Well, first things first, we were confused about the show being about an insurance agency or a R&D department. And part of the reason for that is the Unaired pilot is about an insurance agency 100%. And I really liked that. I actually thought that even though it seems boring, it led to some cool concepts for dealing with rejections and also like increasing premiums on people in like dangerous areas, stuff like that I'm like, oh, they actually had a decent amount of runway with the insurance idea. I understand why they changed it though, because like not all of those ideas are interesting to the average viewer, but I liked them. Definitely felt weird about the cast changes. I thought that the dynamic changes so much when you remove Ron and the girl whose name I never seem to remember. But also that means that like there's a romance now, but also Jackie's a very different character, and also Van is an entirely different character. It's really weird. It feels like watching like a different cast perform the same play, or the same cast performing a different play, and you're like, wait,
yeah, definitely.
Like if I saw Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights, and I was like, wait a minute. Hold on.
You're Hamilton. What are you doing?
It's supposed to be Hamilton, yeah. What about you?
I like this premise a lot more. This is what I understood the show to be before we watched it. So I think there's also just still some like artifacts of this original premise out there wherever the show is like summarized and described. But I think for me the principal difference between it being an insurance agency versus an R&D department at Wayne Industries or whatever it's called is the insurance department thing, or the insurance company thing, just like connects the cast to the world outside way more than the R&D department thing does.
Yeah.
But then the R&D thing, maybe they went that direction because you can like invent stuff every episode, or there's like there's a laboratory. It's like more active, the things that the characters are doing. It's more visual what's going on in the office. Right. And I could see that argument because like insurance is not super interesting to watch necessarily. But there's a lot of accidents that you can come up with in a superhero world. And I felt a lot more connected to the setting in this version of it than in the version of it that we got. I felt like, and then, I think some of the character changes are actually for the better in the show that we got. I think Christina Kirk's character is improved in the real show. I think Alan Tudyk's character is improved. I think Vanessa Hudgens' character, it's like a lateral move to a different thing, but she does both of these things pretty well. Danny Pudi, they didn't give him a lot to do in either direction, and I'm not sure which one I'm not as much of a fan of. And then, of course, R.I.P. to Kate Micucci. They didn't let her cook, and that's their problem.
Not R.I.P. to Kate Micucci. R.I.P. to her character in this.
Yeah. To her character. Yeah.
It's like, I think she's good. But like to speak to Emily for a sec, I think the change of she is jaded about this career path and wants to fix it and that's an arc for her, as opposed to like she's down trying to get back up, as opposed to up, which is what we get her in the real show. And by up, I mean like positive. I mean like optimistic, and she coming down to earth, which is what the main show is about. But in this version, because she's becoming optimistic and hopeful, that final shot of like in the unaired pilot of like, there's little heroes everywhere. I was like, oh, that's what the show can be, is about like the regular insurance people who decided to be nice and not just try to like get claims paid out or whatever are superheroes. And she's framed in a classical superhero movie shot, like a hero shot. And I'm like, wow, that is just a great concept that they could still do in the main show, but they haven't. That I really hope can somehow, because like a lot of this, when I say like I wish they did this, they totally still can. They kind of shuffle the play. You realize how much of a sitcom, and really any show, but especially a sitcom, is like a bunch of ideas on on index cards that are being shuffled around. Yeah, like the Olympian plotline is Green Lantern in this, and it's in the first episode instead of like the second or third, whatever, where they think this guy is a superhero, and Christina Kirk's character is kind of like turned into the other girl, and the twins played by Kate Micucci and Josh Schrader are basically Ron and Teddy in the main show. This is weird, by the way, seeing twins. I'm like, they would have done some sort of Wonder Twins thing. You know it.
Yeah. It's an
Either they're
interesting
actually
choice.
secretly the Wonder Twins, or they dress as them for a Halloween episode. You got to imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this ensemble has about as much potential as the ensemble that we have, because like you said, at the end of the day, you just have like a set of pieces and you have only so much space for a certain amount of pieces. And then the way a sitcom works is you take the pieces you have and you move them around and put them in different situations. And that's the name of the game. But I totally agree with you that what's nice about how they do Emily here is that there's an arc for her to go on. She was hopeful about her job. This terrible thing happened. Her boss, who you pointed out, they just repurposed those shots in that scene and made it her dad, which is hilarious.
A lot of the shots in this unaired pilot are literally recontextualized with different voiceover and called different things. Like the scenes of a jack-o'-lantern on the computer it's still him hacking, but it's a different context. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Love
That's
that.
fun to see that sort of thing happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, her mentor figure at this company passes away, and now she's a little bit jaded, but she's trying to re-find what she loves about this work. That is definitely more compelling to me, and also like puts Emily in a position where she's just more savvy about the world, because instead of her entering into a new context where she's learning the ropes and being told that she doesn't know stuff, and it's like not clear to us what her area of expertise is. Instead, she has been in this work for a while and is good at it and knows what it is.
Yeah.
And is just like having misgivings or doubts about how to go about doing it. And I like that better in a protagonist, as opposed to somebody who kind of like we see show up on their first day and they know about as much as we do.
Mm-hmm.
So that said, it ends up being the opposite situation for Alan Tudyk's character, where I think it's a lot less fun for him to be like new boss on the job who's trying to get everybody to like him, as opposed to what we see of him in the real show, where he's like been around for a while and he's been allowed by the system to be this sort of like lazy Nepo baby guy who is a bit pathetic. And that's just a more fun character than like, I'm trying to show you all that I'm tough and that kind of thing. So you're kind of trading one for the other, I think.
Yeah, his character, it's a small but important side grade that, like, him being this in this unaired pilot, he's like the son of the CEO and gives off much more Nepo baby, as opposed to what and he's also named Del Heller, which is a really weird character name, I think. But in the show, it's like he's got this relationship to Batman, which brings us back to the DC universe, and he's still sort of a Nepo baby, but like you said, he's worked there. He knows where it's going on. My last like big point about this unaired pilot is just what you're talking about with Emily. I personally prefer protagonist arcs to be you start cynical and you warm up to people, as opposed to what I kind of feel like Emily's arc has been in the show, which is you trust easily and you're very anal and you are like coming down to earth and realizing that you need to be like a regular person. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I think the latter is like a little like it's only ever female characters who shows do that too,
I think that's true, yeah.
Which is kind of what feels weird to me about it. But I don't know. I've seen shows do that well. Like I think that's what Parks and Rec does with Leslie Knope, and I like it there.
Right, well, because hers is sorry to interrupt you. It's not about like you need to come down to earth, Leslie. It's the rest of the world needs to understand that they can do things too. It's
true. Yeah. There's a mix of her coming down to earth and people rising to where she is, and the show isn't really doing that mix.
The reason I'm hesitating though is I think one of the episodes we're talking about tonight is kind of like Jackie coming to meet Emily halfway and be like, oh, there's a lot of value in having a friend who's like this. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Emily's right and everyone else is catching up to her.
True. It's a fair point.
Favorite parts of the unaired pilot that you wanted to bring up?
I thought the beginning was just cleaner, where we do the superhero stuff, and then it's this reveal punchline thing of she's in the subway car trying to ask the superhero to like put them down, and then everybody claps for her. And on the news report, it's like, this woman like stood up to the superheroes, and the reporter's like, so does that mean she's the real hero? And the person's like, no. I mean, there was a superhero here, but still pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a fun and more dynamic way to introduce the show, because the one that we have is like very narration heavy, whereas this it kind of like gets you into the theme before it narrates anything. Right. I also thought the like visuals of the theme song made way more sense in this concept than in the one that we have.
Because of the role of the characters, you mean?
Yeah, because it feels like it feels like in the current version of Powerless, it is just an office sitcom that happens to be situated in a superhero world, and there isn't really, you could kind of like drop it into any setting and pretty much keep the same plots, but maybe like switch some of the details. Whereas it feels like this show is kind of making a point about like the superhero world, and the collateral damage is like core to what these characters think and feel, and it's core to how we interact with the world around us. And that's what the visuals of the introduction are all about, is here are these people who are in the background of these like big fights, and how are they responding and reacting to them.
Yeah, so, I remember when I first read about Damage Control, which is a fictional construction company in the Marvel comics that kind of functions like this, where they just exist and they're like, ooh, that's going to be really expensive. Spider-Man like knocked down a building, or whatever, X character like Thor went through a bridge, and now we have to fix the bridge and redirect traffic. Like, I do find that idea of interacting with the superhero world from a ground level endlessly fascinating and cool. I sort of understand why a TV exec would be like, nobody cares about insurance agency. I want them to build something. I want them to like make a product. But then again, that just turns it into Better Off Ted, which is very clear in the main show that they either had some sort of inspiration from that or I don't know, crew crossover. I saw a lot of potential in Christina Kirk's character being a coworker with everyone else and then becoming the secretary. I like to headcanon that that's just how this happened. Is not that she got promoted, but that she just, like in the show, it's like she's always been the secretary, which informs some of her arc. But in this, it was like, oh no, she worked with us. We like knew Jackie for a while before she gets promoted, if I'm not mistaken.
I like the gag of he wants her waiting with the coffee by the elevator.
Yeah. I was here for so long. You took so long.
And the coffee was cold.
Yeah. That was really funny. I forgot about that.
I laughed at that.
The twins, Kate McCucci and Josh Fadem, Chad's alum, who played Phil, Dougie's coffee holding employee from Quebec.
Yeah.
It's always fun to see him. It's funny how much Kate McCucci and him, you could believe that they are siblings. They both have like a small white person with like nerdy vibes look. Neither here nor there though. I'm sorry,
go ahead.
I just was gonna say I didn't really like Tudyk's arc in this about his dad. They established his daddy issues so quickly, and it's like, look how much of a dumb idiot he is, and he's so mean when Emily is like, hey, can we not like reject claims just to get money? And he's like, no, profit is king, and whatever, and it's like,
yeah, it's like a little too on the nose. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, the scene where he introduces himself to the office, there's this subtle little thing that I really liked, where Emily's like, no, we're not, and he says, you are, and she says, no, we're not, and he says, you are, and then he clarifies that he's trying to say, you are, asking who she is.
You are? That was clever.
Yeah, I thought he performed that really well too. It was pretty funny. But then also during that scene, Amanda was on the other side of the room, and she's
girlfriend
like,
of the podcast, Amanda, by the way.
Yeah, girlfriend of the podcast. She's like, what is this show? It sounds terrible. The acting sounds really stale, and I gotta be honest. The Alan Tudyk slander has to stop.
Yeah, seriously, guys, come on.
It must be done. Well, yeah, she was not a fan of the 5 minutes of the Powerless Unaired pilot that she heard from across the room.
Boo. Sorry, Amanda. It's fair. I don't think he's great in that. I think he just is like figuring out the character and doesn't get it. My last big note. So Kate Micucci, like I said, replaces the girl who's in the main show, or is replaced by her rather.
Yeah, kind of. And Ron Funches, kind of. It's like a.
Well, I need to talk about Ron. We got to talk about Ron this week and what's his purpose on this show, because I have a theory, and it's not good. The moment where she tests, like this happens in the show, right? Where she tests if the guy has powers by hitting him with a chair, and it's like, oh, ow, oh my god. But what's funny is they think he's Green Lantern in this, and she hits him with a yellow wooden chair because the first Green Lantern had a weakness to wood, and and all Green Lanterns have a weakness to the color yellow. And I was like, that is such a weird, like deep cut thing to put in your unaired pilot. But shows that they somebody cared about the DC universe minutia. Yeah, I just thought that was great.
Right, I like that moment too.
That's all I got.
Yeah, my last thing is I'm glad that they didn't do this like romance plot that they're doing here with Danny Pudi and Vanessa Hudgens. It just doesn't read or make sense. So.
Especially because there's so few people and there's like fewer people in this cast. So it's just like, this is a show where her and her coworker like each other. And there's nobody for them to like ping off of, because Jackie now works for the boss and they don't want to hang out with the boss. And I guess the twins are like kind of doing their own thing. So it's like,
right. It's not like The Office where there are like 12 characters or whatever who you can bounce around. There's only like 6 of them. That's a good point. Exactly. Yeah.
But cool experiment. I'm glad. Shout outs to Vanessa Hudgens Brazil for posting the unaired pilot on YouTube. You can watch it too if you're curious. But do you want to move on?
Yeah. Let's talk about the actual real show that exists in life.
Episode 4, Emily Dates a Henchman. This one was written by Neil Shaw. It was directed by Matt Sohn, and it aired February 23rd, 2017. Magellan, what happened in Emily Dates a Henchman, besides the title?
In this episode, after being urged by her team, Emily sets her sights on the dating world, but unknowingly falls for one of the Riddler's henchmen. Meanwhile, Teddy and Ron find a Batman artifact and discover Van's superhero fantasy. Alan, what do you think of Emily Dates a Henchman?
I texted you this, and I think it was at the end of this one or beginning of the second one. Powerless is a genuinely funny show when the plot gets out of the way of the characters just being funny. Like, all of these actors have some comedic talent, and when they just, like, I thought that, like, for example, the Van, Ron, and Teddy plot with the Batarang, like, read so stupid on paper, but it gave them so much room to just, like, do gags that I was like, this is actually the funniest thing in this. And that's because they're not putting plot in front of comedy. Otherwise, I think like Emily Dating a Henchman was like a pretty inspired concept that it actually does use the universe that this is in well, and briefly deals with the idea of what being a henchman means. Like, that's a day job, you know, that's a mercenary temp job for people, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Some people like don't care, you know. What about you?
Yeah, I think this episode to me is probably the best example we've seen to this point of an episode that like fully uses the premise of the show to its greatest effect to create like a pretty good episode. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked the Teddy, Ron, Van Batarang subplot. I expected that to be nothing, and it was entertaining. And then I expected the henchman thing to be kind of fun and silly, and it was. So I think this was, you know, if all of the episodes of the show were this incorporated into the world and this good, okay, you know, I think I would feel like this is a show that I could recommend to people.
Right.
Yeah. So I liked it.
This is an example of an episode that you go, yeah, this is like what Powerless does. Is like superhero world, but normal people dealing with dating a henchman. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple laughs in this one. This was not my highest quantity of laughs in an episode, but it had a couple. like I mentioned before, I loved the scene where Van and company quote unquote met Batman, and are overjoyed because they come to his office, which is an alleyway, and they think that they see him, but it's just a Joker goon with like Batman shaped hair. And right when they look away, they get their wallet stolen, and then Batman like strings the guy up. And just like how in Birds of Prey we never see Batman, but he exists. I love that they're all like, we met Batman, oh my god, even though they did not. He was just present for 2 seconds and then left. That was all really good. And it's sold by Tudyk in this like stupid costume, because he's like, I'm gonna be Robin. They got to put Alan Tudyk in a funny Robin costume and make the joke of like, what do you think a 40-year-old with like who his back hurts every time he sneezes is gonna be like the boy wonder, which is like, having just watched that Patrick H. Willems video about Robin, this is why they don't let Robin get that old. It's because it starts to feel weird when it gets old.
Right.
Yeah, that was like my favorite stuff. What were some lines that you really liked?
I really loved this one exchange where Ron is wearing his Batman shirt in the alleyway.
Hardest laugh of the episode.
And what's Danny Pudi's character's name again?
Teddy.
Teddy's like, oh, that's kind of weird. You wore the guy's shirt to meet him. And Ron says, I wore my Bateman shirt when I met Jason Bateman. And Teddy's like, well, how do you react to that? And Ron says, he was befuddled, but that's sort of his shtick.
So, yeah, I met my Bateman shirt when I met Jason Bateman is god tier writing. It shouldn't be funny.
Very good gag.
I think, okay, so good. My positive and negatives about Ron. My positives are that Ron Funches has the ability to be like just dry in a very likable and weird way that you're fascinated by. Like everything that comes out of his mouth, I'm like, what are you saying? But having now seen the unaired pilot, it really feels, especially in like how often they have started to reference his race in different moments, like he is not only in the show a diversity hire, but is in the meta sense like we needed another person of color on the show.
Yeah.
And it just because he references his race so often, that's why I say that. Not that like they can't have another black person on the show, but like he specifically is the guy who references it often.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was pretty stark to me when I finished the Unaired pilot, which he wasn't in, and I was like, Ron, I miss that guy. And then I start this one, and in the first scene, he's talking about how Batman fights a guy who's dressed like a pimp. He's basically like a rapper that saves lives. And it's like,
yeah.
Hold on. What are we doing here? And, I think that it's cool when a show can do that well and like have characters of color who can say things that only those characters can say. Mm-hmm. But it feels like they go for that in this show way more often than they land it. And it just feels weird. And there's that moment in this episode too where Emily talks about how she got the approval of the guy's racist grandfather or something. And he's like, the racist grandfather's my white whale or whatever. It's like,
yeah,
this is just not a thing that people would say. So it's strange. But, that's not Ron Funches. Ron Funches, like you said, what he's bringing to the show is that he can make any line some base level of fun.
Yes.
Like just the way that he delivers everything is like, wow, that was adorable and funny, and I'm smiling right now. So
and I've heard interviews with him, and he is like that. He just acts like that. Yeah. And it's such a unique skill because it's not mean. Like it's just like being a average sounding friendly dude who's like a little bit more earnest about the world than everyone around him. He's like a great character detail. And that's just the funny thing about Ron Funches. Like like you said, he's good. The way that they're writing his character occasionally feels like, I don't know if lazy is the word or just odd. But I'm starting to notice it more and more. But that Bateman line is the best he's had so far.
Yeah, definitely.
Did we notice that Jackie specifically mentions like, oh, my ex was a henchman, and also I'm not with my ex anymore, but I have a child. She's a single mother.
Well, I don't think I knew that before, but also there's a terrible line where she says, all I got from my ex was a kid with a serious ADD problem, which is
Yeah.
awful line. Like,
What?
what the fuck?
What the fuck?
That sucks. But yeah, I did not realize from the first 3 episodes that she's a mom, but she is. So there you go.
I appreciate that. I don't appreciate that line. That's
That
a big,
line is
like, the
big
people who
bad.
wrote this either don't like neurodivergent people or do not know any of them.
Yeah.
Likely the latter. Also, the last like cool plot detail. I think Jackie gets some cool narrative stuff here in this week. Jackie's like, Emily, you're 25. Like, you're holding yourself to this high standard. You're mad that this guy's a henchman. Oh, I'm a bad person for dating a henchman. And it's like, no shit. People work contract jobs all the time. Like she said, like I said, like Jackie's husband was one. And Emily comes up with this whole plot to like catch him. And then they get tied up. And then Van comes home and he's in the Robin costume and the guys run away. And her moment where she tries to call out the henchman is like, are you working in the ICU? Because I see you and you're a liar, which is so like intentionally cringe that it worked. I was like, oh, like, you awkward girl. You don't know how to drop a line. It's like, Emily is a corny person who would say something like that. And it's given the right level of like, oof, what? That was such a bad line. But it made me, I physically reacted to how bad it was.
Yeah. My favorite line from that scene is when she's like, you're a henchman. He's like, yeah, so what? I am a henchman. My real name's Reggie. And I know what you're thinking. Not a lot of white guys named Reggie. And she's like, I wasn't thinking that. But now that you mention it, I guess that's true. I thought that was pretty funny.
I'm almost sure that us and the writers of this show, if asked to name a Reggie, would all name the same Reggie.
3, 2, 1, Reggie Watts.
Reggie Watts. Okay, good talk.
Yeah.
In that scene, by the way, or at the end, Emily's confirmed 25 years old because Jackie is like, you can't hold people up to impossible standards. You're only 25. What the fuck do you know about standards? Like, you haven't lived enough life, which is real. I like that.
Yeah.
So, Emily dates a henchman. It's a pretty okay episode. I had an all right time with it.
Other funny moment from the henchman is they were like, yeah, the boss wanted us to do something with you, but he said it in the form of a riddle. They couldn't quite figure out the riddle.
What runs but never walks, or whatever.
Yeah.
And she solves it for them, and she's like, it's a river, idiots. And they're like, yeah, he wanted us to throw you in a river. And she's like, damn it. I solved your stupid bosses. Imagine working for the Riddler. You just have to answer these stupid puzzles. Oh,
I would love it. The Riddler's my favorite Batman villain.
He's definitely up there. I appreciate a silly, I don't want to say queer coded, but I'm going to say it. Queer, like that's sort of a silly man.
Were we using Facebook in 2017? There's a whole part of the whole thing of this episode is it's Facebook.
Well,
like I see on Facebook he's marrying this hot girl or whatever.
Oh, she's looking at her ex or whatever. I mean,
that feels old for 2017, but I guess we weren't on something else at the time.
Right. What else would we have been on? Twitter, but you don't find that kind of like Instagram. Nowadays, this would entirely happen on Instagram.
Right. When was Instagram started? 2010. So
yeah, but it wasn't big until like 2016. Used. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. How do you feel? And then we can transition to the next episode if you're down.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the way that this show does pop culture references? Because they do it a lot, and I don't know how I feel about it.
Well, not to be that nerd, but every time they do one of these, it confirms that pop culture exists in the DC universe. Right. And I don't like that feeling. But also, every time they do one, I literally am pausing the episode and going, okay, what would they reference? Lena Dunham? Sure, okay. Like, it just dates the show so much. I saw a sorry, finish your point, and then I'll tell you what I saw.
No, go ahead.
I saw a clip from some writer or something today that was saying that what are they called? Not trends. The thing that everybody does. That's like what's the word? It's such a simple word. Everybody does cliches. He was saying the thing about cliches is they are like the death of language, because like all they are, you're not making anything new. You're just referencing something that exists, and you're not progressing like culture forward by making a cliche, by doing or saying something that's been said multiple times before and that we all know. Interesting point. Definitely fleshed out better in his speech than what I'm doing. But like when they do this, it just instantly dates the show. And like this show takes place in the DC universe. It doesn't have to be dated. It can be it's allowed to be timeless. Right. Why date it? It really, I said this last week, it feels like it's network notes or something. Like you got to reference something current, but no, you don't. It makes the show feel old.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I like that death of language thing because it really feels like, I mean, as much as I love the Jason Bateman line, so obviously I'm like being a bit hypocritical here. But, you know, when we are referencing when she meets the guy in the bar and he's got Gilmore Girls on his phone and he's like, I'm Team Jess or whatever. Yeah. Or when Alan Tudyk's character is like, I was in my Maybach listening to Hey Ya, shaking it like a Polaroid picture. And it's like, this feels like a failure to think of something to say almost. Exactly. Like we're going to kind of toss in a reference because that's the thing. And I don't know. I think it feels like the show's kind of learning the wrong lessons from a show like Community that is obviously peppered with these sorts of things. But I feel like Community has a bit more. Community also suffers from being way too referential, but I think it also has a bit more to say about its references. And at the core, its characters are incredibly strong and interesting and respond to the situations they're in. Whereas the show just doesn't really have that. So yeah, it just bugs me. And then it's like, okay, does Arizona State exist in the DC universe now? Because there's
the guy at the bar.
Or whatever. And why are we being so mean to Arizona State for no reason? That feels uncalled for. Anyway.
It's definitely one of those lines that I'm like, did the writer know someone and he wanted to make fun of them?
Yeah.
I can't find the quote right now, but I'll keep digging for it or something. I'll at least send it to you, if not put it in the show notes. But it's an interesting point. Yeah, I wish they did fewer of them, to be honest, is my feeling. Shall we move on, my friend?
Yeah, let's toss it to a break and then do these other two.
All right, we'll be right back after this brief musical break to discuss Cold Season and I'm a Friend.
Welcome back to Chatzerless. The second half of our episode today will cover Powerless episodes 5 and 6. First, episode 5, Cold Season. It was written by Amy Mass and directed by Clark Mathis. It aired on March 9th, 2017. Alan, what happened in Cold Season?
John, I'm glad you asked. In this episode, Emily convinces Teddy to enter a superhero invention contest. Van takes advantage of Ron's kindness and gets him to do a bunch of dumb favors so that he can have sex with a woman. And that feels weird on a network television show in 2017. Magellan, what did you think of Cold Season?
I think similarly to the last one, there were moments where I found myself pretty entertained by some of the gags and some of the performances. But I think what was different here is the plot just felt a little less connected to like the world. It made a little less sense that it was happening. I liked this concept of it gets unseasonably cold in the summer because the cold villains come by or whatever. That was kind of funny. Mm-hmm. And I think they did some good gags with that. But I don't know. The Teddy plot fell a little flat for me, unfortunately. But otherwise, I found myself enjoying pockets of it. What about you?
I like the Teddy plot at least more than Van and Ron's. Like, I'm taking advantage of a nice person and doing it so that I can have sex with a lady. what I liked about the Teddy plot was the introduction of Zane and Anton, who are, I hope, the people that you and I would play if we were cast in Powerless.
They were fun.
They're Redditors. They're hardcore, explicitly by name Reddit MRAs, like men's right activists. This is how they taught me how to talk to women. It's ridiculous. I'm so happy they actually wrote that in. And they're these like fun foils for Emily and Teddy. You can really tell like this Emily Teddy plot is written from maybe a time when they were a couple, and she's like, "Oh, I like you because you're like my favorite coworker, and I want to help you and make you happy because I make everyone happy." But like they work well together because they've had chemistry since that unaired pilot, I guess. Wendy is the woman who I keep forgetting the name of. Let me get that name in my head. Wendy's the good one. Sorry, I was looking through my notes. But yeah, like the Emily Teddy stuff. Inventions. This is now a show about inventions and not insurance, right? It's just which is what it is. He invents the gloves that can heat things up. Which at first we see this like little montage of like demonstration, like, oh, you can heat a bag of popcorn, and then he's really mad because he's a perfectionist because he's the child of immigrants, canonically. And he's like, oh, there's kernels that didn't pop. And Emily's like, oh, but they never pop all the kernels. You know they do that on purpose, right? It's I think that they do that on purpose. It's like a planned obsolescence thing. That's also why the bag lets you leak out a couple kernels so that
What?
it's a conspiracy, Magellan. You're not listening. You don't get it. They're turning the frogs gay. Sorry, a little bit of Alex Jones out of me there. I'm so sorry. Let me stifle that. I want to talk about Teddy's astronaut space doctor brother, AJ.
Yeah, this is one of those things. Look, this is the kind of thing where it's like you could do this in any show. Like any office sitcom could say, "Oh, my brother, he's a space doctor." Actually, the correct term is a space doctor. Any show that's like a little bit goofy and not grounded in reality could do that thing. Why not make his brother a superhero or something?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. Like there's other stuff. Whatever. I don't need to complain about it too much. But that's kind of what my issue was with this episode is it didn't feel like it had to exist in this world totally.
No.
Which was kind of like, that's a bummer.
I did enjoy when they gave Teddy's gloves to the Crimson Fox.
That was fun. Yeah.
She uses it to fight cold enemies. I thought that was a cool use of the power.
Yeah, I like that the Crimson Fox is like mean. that's
well, the Crimson Fox dies and then doesn't die in the unaired pilot. We forgot to mention that, which is the worst paced thing about that pilot, by the way. It's an unaired pilot. I don't blame the pacing for being bad because they just have to show ideas off. But like she dies and they're like, oh my God. And then she just gets up literally 30 seconds later. Like cut away. Oh no, she's dead. Just kidding, she's fine. And in this, she gets the gloves, but no, they don't like publish who made them. So it's this like good narrative moment of Teddy being like, wow, I finally got the thing I wanted, and I don't get the recognition that I expected. Interesting. But I'm proud that I made it, and I'm proud that it's being put to good use. It's like the button on that, because these characters are doomed to always be side characters. So I thought that was a fun like ending on that plot line. Yeah, but mostly just like it's cool to see the rivals, Zane and Anton. The Wayne Innovation Contest is a cool idea. Otherwise, and then we have this like van plot line in the back. I did get a hard laugh out of the van plot line. I got one real hard laugh.
Okay, what was your hard laugh?
He's dating a woman with a child, so he has a kid's car brought to the office. Except Van is a rich man who doesn't understand how assembly required works. So he opens the box, and this is Alan Tudyk being a good actor. He says, it's broken into 1,000,000 pieces. But wait, there's a ransom note. And Jackie's like, that's instructions, sir. It's all in his delivery. It's the like, he's genuinely distraught. Like, they destroyed my kid's car. And then he's like, oh, fuck, I have to build it. Let me hire an employee to do it. And of course, Ron's such a sweetheart, such a little angel, is taking all these Skype calls while Van is like out skiing and hanging out with the lady, being like, can you build? And it escalates and escalates until he's literally building a model of Wonder Woman's invisible jet, which is invisible, and so he's like trying to build it, and then Emily
Somebody
runs
knocks
it through it.
over.
Yeah.
I thought that was
I
funny.
liked the escalation of that, but I just found the like the meanness of Van here a little bit off-putting, maybe.
Yeah, it felt. This was kind of a funny episode to watch after watching the unaired pilot, because there was a lot of characterization in this episode that felt more like it was from that show than this one. The whole Teddy, Emily, are we doing a romance thing? And then, Van being this very aloof and cruel rich guy was not quite who he was billed as in the first episode of this show. Because in the real show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it felt like his character in the pilot that aired was more, I don't really give a fuck. Like, wow, yeah, I guess.
I just want to work I want to work upstairs.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like he was, super wealthy and mean. But they've kind of pivoted him in that direction, which isn't very interesting to me.
Agreed.
Yeah, and then they try to do some like. There were some bits on the Skype call that I thought were funny in spite of myself. Like when he says, well, I need you to build 3 more of those because apparently she has a squad and they have goals. And then he's like, I'm starting to like these kids. That worked for me, even though it shouldn't have.
If it makes you laugh, it makes you laugh, right? Someone wrote that with the intent to be a simple, funny gag.
Yeah, that's true. I also liked at the beginning when they're naming all of the ice-themed villains that are going to attack the city, or they're betting on it. Teddy says, Snow Patrol. Wait, that's a band, but they're coming to town. That was a good line.
Mm-hmm. Remember Snow Patrol?
I don't.
Okay.
Do you?
They have that one song.
What is it?
Is that the one that's like... I don't remember. I know one Snow Patrol song. If I can find it, I'll tell you what it is. Oh, Chasing Cars. Yeah.
I only know Counting Stars.
No, Chasing Cars song. It's like, anyone, if I lay here, if I just lay. That's Snow Patrol.
Okay.
Cars. Anyways, it's a song that plays at like the mall a lot, or CVS in my case.
Okay, that makes sense. Other lines that I liked when they were testing out the gloves, and Emily's like, now I can go to my grandma's 50th birthday. And Teddy says I could do without the backstory. And she says, sorry, I'm taking an improv class.
As someone who's taking an improv class, that's pretty good improv.
And then my favorite line from the like nerdy bad guys is when one of them is trying to put Emily down. And then at the end, he's like, the best you could hope for is to marry one of us. He like tries to slip that in.
Yep.
I thought that was pretty fun. I think there was also a "If I Had $1 Million" reference in this episode. Yeah, because there was like money for something. Like maybe it was prize money for the contest or something. And Teddy was like, I could buy a nice like Chesterfield or an Ottoman or something.
Oh, what?
Something. It might have just been folding chair and Ottoman, and it sounded like a
well, also line, your mind might have filled that in because we just did a Chats Nights where we
just did the
it.
Chats Nights, which you can check out on our Patreon, patreon.com/chatspod.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, those are my bits from this episode, though.
I thought it was kind of sad that Van lies to Ron about making a treehouse so that he can have sex with Dylan's mom at the end of it. So. Be nice to Ron.
Yeah.
Also, somebody references the the fucking Hobbit thing. Stupid. Emily's like, oh, I like. Yeah. Why does she compare him to the Hobbit movie? What's the comparison? That they're disappointing?
Yeah, I guess so. That's what a Hobbit movie would say. I'm not a Hobbit movie. That case in point, what I was talking about before, of just like the references.
Instantly dated.
Yeah.
But let's move on, yeah? We can talk about the last episode this week.
Yeah.
This is I'm a Friend You. It was written by Sabrina Jalise. It was directed by Alex Reed and it aired March 30th, 2017. Magellan, take it home. What happened in I'm a Friend You?
In this episode, when Emily learns that Jackie is in need of some extra cash, she can't help but try and do what she can to help her. What a sentence. She can't help but try and do what she can to help her out. Meanwhile, Van is on a witch hunt and has his eyes set on Teddy, Ron, and Wendy. Alan, what do you think of this one?
I think this is the best episode we watched this week.
Really?
More. Well, okay, here's why. Both plots are good. Emily and Jackie's plot seems a little silly, but is a great bit of character development for both girls, both women. And the Van plot is genuinely laugh out loud funny for most of it, and has a wonderful final button twist that made me laugh. So this episode got the most laughs out of me and had a little bit of good character work. So I was pleased. What about you?
Nice. Yeah, I thought this one was not bad. I don't know if any of the episodes were really like substantially better in my eyes than one another. But I think what I really liked about this one is the core relationship that works the best, which is Emily and Jackie. It feels like when the two of them are together and have a plot together, that's the most heart you're going to get from the show.
Yes. So
I liked the two of them becoming closer friends and connecting here. That felt good. And then the, who used my bathroom plot is like fine. Again, it's a space for these side characters to cook.
Exactly.
Say some funny stuff and
spin on some spinning chairs.
Entertain me. There was no episode that we watched this week that I was like, whew, that was bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
At its worst, this show is like, okay, I laughed a bit. That was fine. That was a good thing to have on in the background. But, this one kind of kept that same pattern and it was good.
Most definitely. I can already hear the comments. I know it's like, Alan, don't invent a dude, but the comments being like, I can't believe Alan's favorite episode this week is the one with Tony the hot dog guy. Because, that's the worst joke the show has seen so far, in my opinion.
That was a horrific runner. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
What a terrible, terrible gag.
Just to defend myself, that's one runner in an otherwise good episode. These are full of jokes, so be nice. Second of all, oh my God, Tony the hot dog guy. So they clearly watched Scrubs and they were like, oh, the Todd is funny because he's a sex pervert. And it's like, no. You totally missed the point of the Todd. That's not why he's funny at all. In fact, that's like the worst part of early Scrubs. Is when the Todd is just a sex pervert. But they built on that. What if he was like cartoonishly horny? What if he was a bisexually horny? And this is just like, hey, I have a sausage and it is my penis and I would like to touch you with it. You are a hot girl. I'm Tony the hot dog guy. Over and over and over again. Oh, not good.
No.
Not good. Couple things. Crimson Fox leaves Charm City to work in Metropolis. I love this, Charm City is like LIC or whatever. Like, people don't want to live here. It's just like, oh, whatever. Business is open.
LIC?
I was like, quick, think of a city, a borough in New York, and John will correct
Why is Long Island City catching strays right now? What the heck?
Because you moved out of Long Island City, my guy. That's why.
All right, fair. I love the phrasing of it being the same as LeBron James, the choice. I'm going to be taking my talents to
right
to Gotham City or wherever it is.
Speaking of Metropolis, speaking of the NBA, they also make a dig like, oh, nobody watches that, just like the WNBA. And I'm like, do you guys know that the WNBA does like very well these days? Like, there's no need to keep making jokes about how the WNBA is stupid. It's like awesome. And
this show punches down a lot, and I don't love that. They also said the B word a lot again this time, like that other one.
Yeah.
Which is a little weird.
Racking up the counter.
Yeah.
Van makes a couple of good jokes back to the Van plot line about his toilet turner, she wrote. Little Law and Order IBS. Hey, which is it's the highest quality of joke you'll find sometimes on Powerless. He's trying to punish the trio by making them work in a sad office, but they discover that the chairs spin around and those are really fun. I love that detail. That's what I would do, obviously. He tries to interrogate them all by like incriminating them, the laziest interrogation plot ever. like from Van, not from the writers. Like, come on, you can do better. He says something like it's going to be more packed than a Mumford and Sons concert. Stop doing this, you guys.
I think it was more packed than a Mumford and Sons concert in the whitest part of Portland. And
Okay.
Ron says, you can just say Portland.
Okay, that's funny. The joke is funny. The reference is not. The joke is funny.
Yeah, right. I mean, again, it'd be interesting to do like a deep quantitative analysis of like how many of the jokes are reference jokes in the show.
Yeah.
But in any other 2017 sitcom, I don't think we would be voicing that critique quite as much. We would kind of say like, reference humor. And then we would name the ones that we like and name the ones that we don't, but we would kind of leave it at that. But like you said in the first half, it's just so glaring here because it's a different reality. Mm-hmm. And so you're like making a point of referencing things within our reality in order to make humor out of them. And it's just suspends my disbelief.
100%.
Yeah.
A couple other... You got some jokes you want to drop?
You know what? I forgot to take notes on this episode.
Oh, wow. I'm impressed that you remembered the Ron line then.
Yeah, it stuck out to me. I am also remembering another one I liked, which is when Emily goes to Jackie's daughter's school to try to like pay for her Six Flags trip or whatever. Uh-huh. And the teacher's like, ma'am, this is a public school. We don't go to Six Flags. We go to graveyards and read sad poetry. Did
you feel called out? I guess you don't work at a public school, but
it was amusing. Yeah.
You're like, we go to South Korea. Yeah, she makes some kids sad at the school. I like that. I laughed at that part. I shouldn't laugh at that, but as Michael Jordan once famously said, "Fuck them kids." Editor's note: he didn't actually say this. I thought it was really weird that Wendy interprets Van's interrogation as flirting. I didn't like the vibe of that. I thought it was like funny for 1 second, and then I always think about this. You flip the genders on that, and it's weird. Her being like, "Oh, yeah, excuse me."
I was thinking about it. I really don't like the sitcom trope character of like side female character is super horny, and that's funny, I guess. I don't like it anywhere.
There is an implicit understanding, and tell me if I'm overreaching here, buddy. Part of the reason it's funny is because she's fat. It's like,
that
she's
feels
the horny
like
one.
What's going on there?
That's the same. And A to Z does the same thing with that guy with the friend's girlfriend. They're just Ben Queen. Ben.
Well, he's not here. We can't blame.
Oh, sorry. No, but I'm sorry. Come back, Ben.
It's the ghost of Ben Queen.
Damn you, ghost of Ben. I just thought that was weird, and I feel called out by the Jackie and Emily plot here at the end. Jackie is becoming like the Kelso of this show I wrote, because she's taking her night classes to get her MBA so that she can leave her boring admin job. That's not fair. Don't just write my life into the show, you guys. But also, I'm also Emily because at the end, Jackie says, I actually want to be friends with you, and people will like wanting to be friends with you because we need friends who are accountable and give a shit about us. Like, it's nice to have a friend who holds you to a standard. And I was like, am I the Emily to my friends sometimes? That's like really true and beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. Maybe my hardest laugh of the episode. Maybe my hardest laugh. Wendy, they're like, I can't use I would never use your private bathroom. I have to use a public bathroom to give me a sense of comfort and security. That destroyed me for some reason. That's good Wendy stuff. I think the actress who plays Wendy's good. They just write her weird lines a lot.
Yeah.
And last but not least, the whole, like, they do the Spartacus thing, and I wish they didn't just say the reference. Like, just do Spartacus and don't say, why are you referencing the movie Spartacus? I haven't seen it. Spoiler alert. Like, can you just let the reference stand and move on if you're going to do it?
Right. Yeah, that's even worse when they're doing the reference and then trying to do the meta joke on top of the reference. Yeah.
It's not my favorite.
I don't love that.
And at first it seems like, oh, no one actually used the toilet. At the beginning of the episode, there was a bee in his bathroom and Jackie killed it and he saw the magazine. That must be what happened. But if you stayed through the credits, we learn that the janitor from earlier, whose name is Peter, but Van keeps calling him Pedro because he's racist, had video footage of every single employee using the toilet, and he deleted it to spite his shitty boss. I think we stand Peter.
I think we do. That is a fun reveal that everybody uses the toilet. That's what it would be.
And for some people, it's like a routine. Like they bring a towel and they bring like a book or whatever. It's like, well, not only do we use our boss's toilet, but we do it frequently.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah, me too.
Groovy. Well, I would love to tell you what we're not watching next week on Chatsworless, if you don't mind.
Please do.
We're doing another 3-pack, not 4 though, because we don't have any more unaired stuff. So it's episode 7, Van v. Emily, Dawn of Justice. When Emily has to put up a fight to get her own office, she challenges Van to a competition. Meanwhile, after Teddy's life is saved by Green Fury, he goes to great lengths to see her again. Green Fury. Is that probably a real thing? Okay. Next up is episode 8, Green Furious. Oh, a continuity.
Okay. There's plot. Okay.
Emily takes a stand at her first board meeting and must deliver on a big idea with the help of superheroine Green Fury. Meanwhile, Teddy tries to find a way to get Green Fury's attention. Whoa. And elsewhere, Jackie brings her daughter to work, but starts to get worried when she bonds with Wendy. Wendy plotline.
Huh.
Oh, Green Fury is a character, and also she looks awesome in this. I just saw a picture of her. Oops. Last but not least, episode 9, Emergency Punch-Up. The team gears up to leave for a company retreat when supervillain Dr. Psycho releases a toxic gas in Charm City. Emily does her best to make the most of a terrible situation. That's every episode of the show. That second part there. Dr. Psycho, also a real DC villain. Wow. They're doing DC stuff next week. Great.
Okay.
Before we get there, Majon, I'd love if you told me and the listener at home where people can find you on the podcast sphere.
You can find me on another podcast called Super Smash Echoes, which I do with my friend Justin, where we talk about games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise. Super Smash Echoes, that's the show. And then you can also read some of my writings over on my Substack at notthatmagellan.substack.com. That's the name of the Substack. Alan, what about you? What other stuff do you do on the internet?
I do a bunch of stuff, bud. I am on a bunch of Scanline Media podcasts here and there. I voice one of the main meta-narrative characters in their Embers of War tabletop campaign. I am the co-host of the Creature Quorum, which is a comedy discussion podcast about monsters from Monster Hunter and Pokemon. And I am the co-host of the Garnet Wager, which is a reality TV show podcast with a twist. I can also be found as the co-host of, or the main host rather. I always forget. There's no other person who does the talking. As a host of Talking Marketing. This is a bi-monthly podcast that I do with American Marketing Association of Boston. I interview marketing people. I'm taking a break from the pod right now, but episodes are queued up until the middle of the summer, so you won't see a break in it, but I have been taking a short sabbatical from my time on Talking Marketing, and it's been good. So check that out wherever you listen to podcasts. And Maggie, can you please give the kids the Chats Plug Zone?
You can get in touch with the show in a few different ways. You can email us at gmail.com, chatspod@gmail.com, of course, with your questions, comments, concerns. You can try to get in on one of our last... Well, actually, by the time you hear this, Pat will be done recording these. Sorry, you missed your shot. But if you want to be on the show, just tell us, and we'll say yes.
We'll fit you in.
We'll fit you in. You can also follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/chatspod. Soon we'll be on Blue Sky, dropping.
Go ahead.
Knowledge. What are the things? I'm just kidding. We don't have a Blue
Skeets.
Sky. Skeets. Yeah. God, it's stupider than I could have ever imagined. Skeet. So you can also join a community of fellow listeners over at reddit.com/r/chatspod or on our Discord, which is a reward for folks who back us on Patreon at $1 a month or higher. If you also back us at $3, you'll get access to twice monthly bonus content. You heard some of that bonus content a couple episodes ago on the main feed. We do that stuff all the time. We've been doing it for years and years. There's tons of bonus content. And you can get it for the low price of $3 a month. And then, of course, $5 a month and up gets you thanked right here at the end of every main feed episode. Special thanks to, of course, Arthur, Jen, Justin, Kat, Lee, my mom, Marcus, May Louise, Michael, Nick, and Pat of the Brothers in Infinite War 6, and Stefan. Thank you, folks, for supporting the show. Other plugs here, please consider rating us wherever you listen to us. It'll help us out. We also have a YouTube, by the way, Chats, a television podcast on YouTube. We have a couple of our episodes posted there. We have a website, chatspod.com. Big thanks to @Camillastrator, who has created our podcast art, our friend Camilla. She's awesome. And last but not least, we want to share with you a couple of our chatsums. Alan.
What?
I think everybody has forgotten your chatsum, and they're ready to hear it again.
I have additional ones.
Fun!
So briefly to shut that one out again, Gender Reveal, which is my favorite podcast of last year, is still going strong. They're on a season break, though, so I started backing their Patreon, patreon.com/gender. It's a podcast hosted and about and by and featuring trans people from all walks of the earth. It's really funny and relatable and sweet and thought-provoking. And their bonus podcast, Gender Conceal, is basically the chats nights of Gender Reveal. They like hang out and it's way less structured, but it's been great listening as I've just been like, I've been listening to so much audio lately. I need like sounds in my head or else the voices come back. And Gender Conceal is a great thing to have in your head. I've already listened to their whole Patreon backlog though. I devoured it in 2 days. It's so good. But no, I really want to quickly shout out. So because I've been listening to so much audio, I have caught up on my Spotify album backlog for 2023. Completely caught up. And the only 3 albums I left in there are ones that I plan on re-listening to throughout the summer. And they are the following. The Album by the Jonas Brothers, or Jonas Brothers, which is an album written and produced by John Bellion for the Jonas Brothers and features such wonderful songs as Waffle House and Americana and Wings. I love John Bellion. He's like my favorite songwriter working today, and he brought his special panache to the Jonas Brothers' talents, and it's a good album. It's very poppy, and it's like a summer jammy thing. Speaking of summer jams, I think the Tronada Amine collabo is excellent. It came out last Friday as of this recording.
Oh, you listened to it?
Yeah, I already listened to it twice. It's excellent.
Oh, it's good. Okay.
It's summer jams. Song? Some of them are better than that one song than Forever. Yeah.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, I really like it across the board. It's just like I'm gonna listen to this at the beach at some point. It's just such a jam. It's relaxing and fun and good.
That's great.
My third one is a less popular pick. It's the latest Sharon Van Etten album. I got into her because of Twin Peaks: The Return, and I'm still listening to her work. I heard a song from this latest album, which is called "We've Been Going About This All Wrong." I heard the song "Mistakes" on Yellow Jackets, actually, and I was like, holy shit, there's a Sharon Van Etten fan on the Yellow Jackets music team. So "We've Been Going About This All Wrong" is the third in my summer repeat playlist albums. But John, what do you got?
Well, last time we talked about Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which I've been playing a bunch of, and it's so freaking good. I love it so much. It's such a good game that it's shifted my YouTube algorithm slightly so that it's not entirely NBA content, but now also includes some Legend of Zelda video essays and reviews, retrospectives, lore, speculations, things like that. So I've been digesting a ton of that stuff. So I have 3 YouTube channels to recommend to you based off of that. The first is called The Vile Eye. It's a YouTube channel that dissects pop culture villains, so or evil characters. And the guy who makes Vile Eye recently put out a like remastered video essay combining the essays that he did about Demise, Ganondorf, and Ganon. So I thought that one was really good. I'd recommend it. But there's content here that spans movies, TV, video games, evil in all its forms. So I thought that was a pretty interesting concept for a YouTube video essay channel. So The Vile Eye is the first one. If you're looking for more long-form retrospective reviews of games, Liam Triforce is a solid channel that has some longer retrospectives. I watched his Twilight Princess retrospective, or it's called The Powerful Responsibility of Twilight Princess, and I really like that.
Ooh, good title.
I thought that was a good treatment of a game that I love very much. And then late last night, I was doing some work late into the night, and YouTube offered me a special gift, which is content from this channel called Moxie Watts. And Moxie Watts has several videos on the channel that are part of a series called Zelda Lore to Sleep To. And
That's awesome.
It's just somebody like heavily speculating about Zelda lore for like an hour straight with this sort of like calming ethereal music and the vocal tone of like a thingy. What's that thingy where people talk softly?
ASMR.
It's like an ASMR kind of vocal tone with like kind of spooky Zelda music. And they're just saying stuff that's like way out there. You're like, no way, that doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna go to sleep.
Honk shoot me.
Honk shoot me. So I'd recommend that. It's a perfect thing to watch at like 1 a.m. when you're like, why am I awake? So
my intrusive thought,
YouTube channels for you.
My intrusive thought when I said ASMR was to say it the way that the guy says it, the countries in Street Fighter 2. USSR, ASMR. So
that's funny.
I will definitely be checking out Liam Triforce and Moxie Watts.
Yeah.
And the third one that you said. That's awesome.
The Vile Eye.
Yeah. There it is. I love that one. Actually, like the appeal is like, oh my God, such a unique niche. I love that.
Yeah. I thought that was such a great idea. Like, why have I not seen anyone do that before? Mm-hmm. It's so simple, but so much you can do with that. So yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
That's all we got, folks. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Chats. We mentioned where you can support us and all that. But as always, I want to say thank you to Magellan for being the unaired pilot Teddy, to my unaired pilot Emily, because we could have been together until we got canceled. Until we got reworked. And now we're just really good friends. And thank you guys for listening to Chats. Peace. Powering up!
Bye.
So cringy. Bye.